Thank you. My name is Emily. I'm one of the executive directors of the festival. Welcome to day 2 of TV camp. We're still on day 2, right? Okay, great. Wasn't sure if today was Saturday yet. We're so excited all of y'all are here. This is a panel Kate and I worked really hard on and really fought for. Obviously, we are 2 women running this festival, and we feel very strongly about female representation on TV. And we're like, who can we gather together that represent strong and complex, not complicated, but really full-rounded personalities and friendships and the whole spectrum of what women should be on TV. So we're very excited for this array of actors and creators that are going to come out here and talk about this subject, and very much led by our moderator, Sandra Gonzalez, who is amazing. So I'm going to bring out Sandra to introduce the panelists.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. We're going to go ahead and bring out the panelists so we can get this conversation going. It's going to be a good one, trust me. First, help me welcome Mara Brock Akil, creator of Being Mary. Liz Tigelaar, creator of Hulu's Casual. Jennifer Kaytin Robinson, creator of Sweet Vicious. Oh, I did that wrong. Sorry. At the end. Kyra Sedgwick, who has played every single great role you know. Mary McDonnell. Taylor Dearden. And Jennifer Kaytin Robinson, creator of Sweet Vicious. Ladies, this is so exciting. Look at this amazing panel we have here today. Yeah, I'm geeking out. But guys, so just to kind of get things started, we obviously live in a time where telling stories about women is kind of more important than ever. But as we all know, nobody on this stage would really be here without the giants that came before us. And I was curious, like, backstage watching everyone talk to each other. There's such a great community here. Who do you all consider your giants? Like the women you looked at and said, I can play characters like that, or I can create characters like that. Whoever wants to start.
Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball.
Oh, turn your mic.
Sorry.
Oh, turn your mic on.
Sorry. Hello. Hello, everybody. Lucille Ball. I mean, Lucille Ball was a brilliant, beautiful actress who, created her own production company and created her whole shows. And I mean, she was a very powerful force, but funny. But all of her funny was grounded in great pathos and pain, which was what made it so funny and real. And I don't know, she was a real hero of mine.
I think Debbie Allen for me. I remember watching her on Fame. I was like, who is this? And where is that place? And can I go to school there? But I don't forget. I remember I was a stage PA on the Sinbad show.
God,
and Debbie Allen, and the good news and the bad news. The bad news is the show wasn't doing well. The good news is that when a show's not doing well, people come to fix it. And Debbie Allen was called in to come help fix it and direct, and Sinbad called her and said, hey, can you help out? And she walked on that set with such command and confidence. And I remember sitting there, and she said hello to me. Hey, baby, how you doing? Yeah. And I was like, she saw me. And and I remember she even asked me to take her. I just remember how she looked at me. She actually made eye contact with me. She said hello, asked me how I was. What are you doing? I know you're the stage PA, but what do you want to do? Those sort of things. And not to mention a different world. I mean, the impact she had on my life from a different world, and then I'm talking to her, and then she asked me to take her car, which was a green Jag, to her, God, I have another San Vicente story, Jen, but it was to drop her friend off, and I thought the confidence she had in me, those little things had nothing to do with writing at the time, but I knew what she had done, and she was real and accessible. And to this day, we are friends. I had the pleasure of hiring her and working with her. And so the full circle of that still exists, and even what she's doing. And if you know Debbie Allen, she's not stopped. She doesn't stop. She keeps going, and that's something that continues to be an inspiration to me for what I want to do. So anyway, that's it.
Oh, that's lovely. Jennifer, do you have anybody that you kind of...
Yeah, I mean, it starts with Lucille Ball for me. I taped every episode of I Love Lucy, and I would sit there and cut out the commercials manually as a young person, and I have all my VHSs of every I Love Lucy in order, no commercials. I was an indoor kid. But for me, I would say Nora Ephron and Carrie Fisher are both huge for me. They are women who put themselves out there and redefined what a woman was on screen and in print, and who a woman could be behind the camera. And I think something that is so important is not being afraid to ask for what you want, and neither of them seemed to be afraid of that, which I think is very inspiring.
Absolutely. Mary, did you have anybody that you kind of looked up to?
I think the very first woman that kind of blew my mind and displayed to me that a woman's mind was, on some level, her most powerful tool was Katharine Hepburn. And then later on, as I got a little bit older, I got into Lauren Bacall. Because it was like, oh, sexuality. Oh, so you can take a word and make it sexy. And you can take an idea and make it sexy. And so between the two of them, I just felt like I was very lucky to grow up at a time where, Katharine Hepburn was the first woman to wear pantsuits, ladies. You know what I mean? She just did it. So I love them. I adored them. And then, of course, as time went on, there were so many wonderful women everywhere. But I also grew up in New York on the stage in the years of Meryl Streep's emergence. And I have to say, I just feel really blessed to be an actress during the reign of Meryl Streep. I do. Even though I know she's taken half my roles. And half of Kyra's. Whoa! Oh dear. That must have been the ghost of Meryl. Anyway, so.
That's amazing. Liz, did you have anybody that you were...
Well, I was trying to think, like, who's my person? And, Kirstie Alley from Cheers came into my mind as someone who, I just remember she had an episode. I used to recap Cheers episodes in a similar way, but I used to recap them in art class with, my best friend in 6th grade, and I was... Not that Shelley Long was fine, but, Kirstie Alley was it for me. When she came, and she had a whole episode where her nickname at UConn was Backseat Becky, and I remember being like, oh my God. She was called Backseat Becky because she was doing stuff in the backseat. Anyway, I was too embarrassed to even say it, but I was so enamored with her, and I loved that she was this professional, but then she was a mess, and her hair was stuck to the paint, and she had a cigarette in her mouth and could flip it over. And the other person that came to mind, Melissa Gilbert, Little House on the Prairie, I was heavily influenced by, but I would say my main influence was Crystal Chappelle from Days of Our Lives, played Carly. I thought all women, when having sex for the first time, needed to wear a slip underneath their clothes. I thought those were your sex clothes. I'm and then I need to get a slip, and it's got to be under my clothes, and then someone's gonna peel it off and scoop me up. I had no idea, but I was so mesmerized with Bo and Carly. It was life-changing, and honestly, I think why I'm a TV writer. Myself and Jen Houston, who's a wonderful casting director, who's here at the festival, cast Girls and Orange is the New Black and everything amazing. She and I were college roommates, and we were we lived at Oakwood Home of the Stars in Burbank, and we were someday we are gonna move to LA, and we are gonna take over Days of Our Lives, and we are gonna bring it back to its 1990 greatness. Bo and Carly will be there, Jack and Jennifer will be there, and she still comes over to my house in LA, and we fish out. Now all my VHS tapes, of course, are converted to DVD like a lunatic, and we will watch Jack and Jennifer's wedding and order Domino's pizza. So those are my Those are my iconic influences.
Taylor, did you have anybody?
Yeah, I was gonna say, as an outside kid who wore pants all the time, Katharine Hepburn for sure. For sure, right? But also Carol Burnett. Oh, yeah. With that comedy is ridiculous. I loved her Gone with the Wind with the curtains. Oh my God, brilliant. And I also loved Jane Fonda. Yeah. And Doris Day, because they were all kind of like badass tomboys. Absolutely. And felt right, you know?
But Liz, the picture you paint of like Christy Alley with like her hair or like the slip during sex or whatever it is, these things are just like anchors of authentic portrayals of women. Yeah. Like you see somebody who's doing something that just feels real, that feels right. When was the first time, I guess to the actors first, when's the first time you remember portraying a character or reading a script that you were like, I see myself for the first time? Because we all pay our dues. We all take on the roles that we have to pay the bills. But eventually something lands in front of you where like, this is real, this is why I do what I do. Who was that for you all?
For me, I played Nora in Doll's House. And it's kind of a scary thing to admit that that was me. Because, you know, this woman was so trapped inside trying to fix everything and be right and do it right and be the sweet little songbird for the husband, which really wasn't my life. But in fact, I had a Nora trapped inside of me. And I was this like really cool like bohemian actress in disguise. So when I played that role, it was a revelation that women contemporary women who have all of these opportunities can be carrying inside of them this idea that the miracle in life lies in something that the patriarch dictates. And that just ain't true, right? So, at least in my opinion, and I love every single man out there.
Except for you.
But, you know, it was a revelation because she taught me something very profound about my secret limitations.
Wow. Kind of the same thing for me. I think the first time I saw Laurie Metcalf on stage in All My Sons as Kate, it made me realize what I wanted to do. But the part that I went, oh, yes, I think it was Viola in Twelfth Night for me. I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, just completely go against what society tells you and do whatever you want anyway. Yeah, I'd say that. I'd say Viola.
And Kyra?
It was Callie Corey's Something to Talk About, Emma Ray. I played Julia Roberts' sister, yeah. She was such a badass, and she was just hilarious. And she always had the exact perfect comeback to everything. And she was, you know, no apologies. And she was everything, all the things that I really want to be and can't always be, but just like deeply authentic and hilarious and fierce with her sister. And it was a great part. And I was like, oh, wow, this is like, I have to get this. It was that moment, you know?
And after those moments, do you feel a little like hungry for more of that? Like after you see something like that, is it hard to take a step, what you feel is back or away from that?
It's torturous. Yeah. It's torturous. Because, I mean, I feel like, honestly, as an actor, I've spent much of my life making something, you know, making something better or more, you know, three-dimensional than it is on the page. I think for women, generally speaking, it's often the girlfriend, the wife, the long-suffering. I mean, there's some really distinct, you know, role models of women that I think often get undernourished with good writing, and sometimes, you know, you just do it because you have to do it, or because it's a good director, or you hope for the best. And so it's really frustrating when that happens. It's hard to wait around for great writing. It really is few and far between the great writers. So yay for great writing.
Yeah, we have some of them on stage.
Yeah,
Thanks,
we've got
writers.
amazing. I just want to say something about the secret that I'm sure we all know that I'm not sure any of you know. You might know.
I don't know it.
it's changing now because women's roles are getting more complex, not complicated. But the great secret was you would go through a script, and the thing you had to do immediately was to cross out every emotional stage direction. Because they would say things like this: she's very angry, she's enraged, but doesn't show it. This woman is an incredibly strong matriarch. She's been through this, she's been through that, but she's so vulnerable. And it was like, first of all, we don't need you to describe emotional states of characters. Just write her, and we'll bring it. Do you know what I mean? And that is finally, I'm starting to notice, thank God, finally, because there was such a fear of women going beyond what felt comfortable. And, you know, so if you had a scene where you were angry back in the old days, you could count on how long it would take for them to come up to you and say, you know, could you just
Be smaller, just generally.
Smaller, yeah. And you know, your anger is really powerful, but it's not very attractive. Yeah. You know? So that's kind of what we were. I don't know. What? How about you two? Like, I'm older, so is it? Hello, really? So is it different?
Well,
I mean, did you experience?
I do think there is that assumption that women automatically are. I don't know if it's that we're worse actors or that we need everything to be fully explained to us. But I've had it where a director comes up and explains like moment by moment of the scene that I'm like, no, I prepped. I'm good. I have my notes. We're good. And it's just like, okay, so in this millisecond, you need to, and I'm like, no, why don't you just see it? I'll adjust after, but not before we've started. It's an assumption that we can't do it on our own.
But you know what? Well, I'm going to talk too much, so just shut me up at any time, any of you. I'm serious because this women's thing is like, you know, I'm on fire, honey. I'm just on fire.
But for me, I want to jump in this conversation.
Yes, please do.
That, for me as a creator, it's interesting. I used to joke privately, and I shared this on just a panel before, that I used to say that I was a documentary filmmaker when I started Girlfriends, because Black women and our nuance and our complexity and who we were and our trivialness, and you know, we were only given to be asexual or a bitch or a whore, and even at the time that I was sort of coming up to create. And so for me, I felt like I using my art or my platform, if you use all these sort of words or my moment to tell stories, there's a slight activist in me in the spirit of creating space so that women can be, for even more specifically, for Black women to be. Like I remember, there's a natural hair movement, which is a part of who I am. But if you Google natural hair, you'll see Black women's hair, and I know that me and Tracee Ellis Ross in the character of Joan helped that movement just by having I fought for Tracee to have her. It wasn't a huge fight. I don't want to act like it was a tussle, but I had to speak up for those sort of things. For Tracee to wear her glasses, like if you see Joan's character, that was Tracee wanting to be that real too and that brave. And people are like, oh, she wants to wear glasses. Like, yeah, well, that's not that's the point. We like to take our bras off, our shoes off, our makeup off. We like to get out of that stuff, and we like to put our glasses on because we can't see, but even those things, and even for Wendy Raquel Robinson, who played Tasha Mack, just a fearless role. And I know she created space and an ushering in of Cookie Lion. I'm clear, I know that. She built an opportunity for us to have these things because we weren't even taking up the space. We were like invisible. We didn't even belong, we weren't even there in a lot of ways. And then even more recently in Being Mary Jane, what I love is I love the character of Mary Jane, but really, I thought I was joked that the show could be called Being Helen Jr. because of her mother. That woman of that generation didn't get that voice, and why, just all the layers of, even this unpacking this notion that black women are angry. Well, first of all, we have a lot to be angry about. And secondly, and that's okay, that to your point about angry, like, no, hear me. This is why we're angry. But really, that generation that didn't even have as much choice that her daughter does, and all of these sort of, and that the anger sometimes is stuck between women. It's not, anyway, but all of those sort of, but breaking down all of these sort of things to make space, I think, is exciting, and I'm full, and I feel like I don't have, it's funny, in Hamilton, that song, I feel like writing like I'm running out of time. Yes, I don't have, there's not enough time to usher in enough of the portraits of women and their complexity in a given day, so.
Absolutely. To your point about fights, does anyone remember a moment where they really fought for something because they thought it was important and won? I wanted to hear about the victory.
One.
There's like a billion stories and thought bubbles over each person.
I won't hulk up the mic.
No, you go first.
I fought for Tony to be the hue.
To be the hue of her skin. It was important to me, and embarrassingly so. I was complex in this moment, meaning it was casting. We were in that casting off, in the testing, so actors have to test to get the roles and everything. And we had gone through, and we had to recast from the pilot. And we went through, when I say we went through everybody, because once Tracy was placed, she was of a certain hue and hair texture and all those sort of things. And we found all these different hues, but I didn't have a chocolate girl. I was like, no, we're not gonna do a show about black women and not have a chocolate girl. There is just no way. She needs to have all the features, and we went through them all. And there were some other black actresses, but of different hue, and I fought for Jill's hue. She had her resume said Dallas Cowboy Cheerleader. There was nothing for me to hold on to point to say she can do it, other than her audition and in the casting when they finally got my way, and also the pressure. They're like, okay, basically when this shit fucks up, it's on you. I cried. I cried for two reasons. In front of all these people, I cried because it was real. It was a fight, and I cried, and I'm kind of getting a little teary now, but I'll never forget that moment. Then I was also equally scared and felt the pressure of, if you fuck up, it's on you. And so there's every moment is a fight after that.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel like I fight all the time, and I don't see it as a negative thing, and it doesn't have the same, it has a negative connotation, but really it is about trusting your own instincts and having the courage of your own convictions and fighting a lot of your demons that are telling you to be quiet, or fighting people that are telling you you could be wrong. I am in a luxurious position of being, I've been around a long time, and so I have choices. I feel like I actually always had choices, and I think that's an important thing to know, that you always have choices. But I'm executive producer on my new TV show. I just directed my first film. I mean, I had to fight with, for casting. I had to fight for casting on the new TV show I'm doing. I had to fight for, let people know my strong feelings about directors.
Your passion.
Yeah, my passion, and I'm really passionate, and I think that I can often get people on board because I make excellent arguments. I mean, no one would mistake me for a lawyer, but I see the whole picture because I've been a producer for over 20 years as well as an actor, and now a director. So I really sense that I have a really great picture, and always. One of the first people I ever studied with acting was Stella Adler, and she always talked about the piece. You're a cog, you're a moment in that, but you have to understand the whole piece. You have to understand what the writer is intending. Like, what's the genre? I mean, like, like really understanding. I love the idea of, being in the minutia of it and the myopic nature of it, but then pulling back. And she always talked about raising it to the level of like life and death and God and devil. And, I'm into that. Like that turns me on because if we're not really talking about big things all the time, what are we doing? I mean, really, so even if it's, a lighthearted comedy, we're still digging in on a deep level because that's what makes people lean in. That's what makes people interested, is when the stakes are high.
I love your comment about we always have choice. And I also love, to your point, the fighting is not a negative. It can get tiring. It can get exhausting. It can feel lonely a lot of the times. But I also think, I like having the ball. If anybody's gonna fight, I want to fight for the story. So it also is a charge, and I think that's something to know about oneself in this. To your point about the cog, where you fit in the puzzle of making stories too.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I like that.
I did a movie called Sneakers years ago, and thank you.
Love to see.
And there were basically two women in it. And I played the woman who actually was in it consistently. The other woman had one scene, and it was 7 male movie stars, and we're talking big guys, little guys, all kinds of guys. So we go through this whole caper, and she's really important to the whole caper. She's sort of the smartest person in the room quite often, and we get to the end of it, and they're all going to get a reward for this caper that we pulled off. And in the script, they go one at a time to each man. And James Earl Jones says, and what would you like, to David Strathairn? What would you like, to Dan Aykroyd? What would you like, to Sidney Poitier? And then the script ended. So I went, okay. So silent again. So I went to the director, writer, and I said, I think Liz should probably be asked what she wants. And he said, well, yeah, but I just don't know what she wants. I mean, I don't know what to write. And he goes, and I said, well, what do you think? And he goes, well, she's so great. She doesn't need anything. And I said, then write, I don't need a thing. And he went, oh. I said, express the woman. You don't have to make up. She doesn't want a car. You know what I mean? And so he wrote it in. And it worked, and it came back over and over and over. And it was simply a matter of this beautiful man who wrote this great script really didn't know how to think about how she would think. But when I asked him, he did know. He did know. She didn't need anything. So it was a good experience. It was, yeah.
And do you think that it's those moments that almost highlight the importance of having a woman behind the scenes? If he had a female co-writer, I feel like she would have said, but what about her? In the writers' rooms especially, how do you feel like having female voices contributes to just the larger aspects of the story? To whoever.
I mean, representation is everything. I think if we're not represented, no one seems to want to do it for us. And speaking to what Mara said about, making a choice and then kind of that's your hill to die on if it doesn't work out. I do think that there's something with women where it's looked at as if this gets fucked up, it's your fault. And when a man makes a mistake, it's like, you'll get him next time. And I think I just saw this in a way that exploded in, I think a good way, but also a bad way for the reporter, when they called Patty Jenkins directing Wonder Woman a gamble after only doing an $8 million film and then being given an $150 million film, and Colin Trevorrow was a discovery. And I think
that's exactly right.
I think it's those things, and it's the way that we're also looked at and put upon to be everything. And if you can't be everything, then get out. And it's like, well, why? Well, I can't fail. I can't make mistakes. That's me being a human being. And I think before we look at man and woman, it's like, I'm a human being and I'd like to be treated as such. And I still think we're struggling to be treated as human beings, which is crazy. And I think it's something that unless we keep saying, this is, hi, like, I'm a human being, like, treat me this way, like, I deserve these things, and speaking up and saying what we want and not saying sorry and not starting sentences with, like, and really asserting ourselves. Because, no, but I do think, like, you laugh, but I think that I do it all the time, and then I catch myself in later, and then I get mad at myself, and I'm like, why did you do that? And I'm so hard on myself, and I'm so mean to myself, because I've done something that has kind of been put upon me by society. So it's like, I feel like we're being given the beatings, and we're also taking them from ourselves.
It gets under your skin. I mean,
Yeah.
it becomes part of your behavior, the thing that you brought up, that I know that you and I talked about very early on when we were in our wonderful spin-off moment. Whatever. Well, no, I won't go into it. We talked about the tendency of writers, to address what you said, to add apologistic language to everything. So if you were playing, an amazing cop who was a chief, or a cop who was a captain, who was in charge of a thing, or a president, or whatever, quite often the writing, if you were about to give a directive, would start with, I'm sorry, but I think that...
Or they're a complete cold-hearted bitch with no redeeming qualities. It's like the two, it's
one or the other.
either or.
Yes, you're either apologizing for your power,
You can't
or
be
you're
strong and nice.
really bitchy. Yeah. So that what you were saying, and I think it's really beautiful what you said, that you don't even realize sometimes how much you're fighting against a gigantic, pervasive culture, and you're failing yourself, and then you get mad at yourself for failing yourself. But don't. Not anymore. As of this day forward.
I need to record you saying that and then just play it to myself in the morning. Like, no, yes, do it. On Sweet Vicious, you all did a the whole show was about a really powerful issue, which is sexual assault. But, I can't imagine what the pressure was taking on a subject like that when everybody expects you to do it perfectly right because you're a woman, and so you could speak to it about it a certain way. Can you tell me a little bit about sort of the pressure you felt going into that, like to get it right, and the pressure that I guess everybody can speak to get certain aspects of being an authentic woman right?
Yeah, we did so much research, and we spent our time with the characters, and for me, I was so nervous that survivors would watch this and think that we had taken something that wasn't ours to take and put out in the world. And instead of it being received in that way, it was received as, I see myself, thank you. And it was a huge wave of relief. And not only that, myself and Taylor and Eliza and Amanda and Stacy and all of the women and men who worked on the show, we became part of a community of people, survivors, friends of survivors, parents of survivors, who were able to rally around something that felt positive and that felt like we were showing what it means to be broken, and we were also showing that broken doesn't mean you're not strong. And that going through trauma and feeling pain and dealing with mental illness and all of the different things that everyone goes through in their whole life, you don't have to be just one of them. And I think for a lot of my childhood, I saw women who, were archetypes. And I saw a woman, you see young women who the pretty blonde girl is the mean girl and she's not nice. And then there's this girl who has glasses and she's smart. And it's like, that's just not what women look like. And I think if we can tell more stories where we, broaden women and give them nuances and make them feel real, I also think that, that seeps into the subconscious of the young people watching TV and even, everyone watching TV. And things can start to change and people can start to mobilize and storytelling can evolve.
I agree, and I also find it weird because it's like it's accurate that I feel we do judge so much on like hair color and stuff. Like Ophelia could not have my hair color. Ophelia could not be blonde. That would be really weird. She's a total greenhead. But yeah, I just feel like we were lucky to, and thankfully it worked out well. But we were all very nervous. As soon as we stopped shooting and waiting for it to come out, we were like, oh man, let's hope this. We felt amazing doing it, but there's always that like, but it could fall completely flat. And I also thought it was great that Jen wrote, my character Ophelia, as like, even though she wasn't assaulted, depression and anxiety are things that don't need a reason. And so that one scene that she wrote talking to Evan, who's my boyfriend in it, just saying that the guilt that I think people, but especially women, feel of having these emotional and mental issues without having a reason. Going back to apologizing. Yeah. Like even if your chemical makeup is making you sad and yet you still feel a need to justify it and be like, I'm so sorry what you're going through, I don't know what that's like. And like, no, everyone's got their stuff and we should all respect that as opposed to justifying it in some weird way.
That's a very interesting point. Absolutely. That deserves applause, yes. To the writers and Kyra and everybody who does the producing work, we're kind of in this time where there's like a major lack of women behind the camera. We've kind of talked about that, but what do you think is the solution to getting more women involved in the other aspects of production? And because it's so important, that's how we catch problems with female characters. That's how we make them better. What are your ideas for how to do that?
I mean, I think having women as executive producer creators showrunners obviously is hugely helpful. I know on Casual we hired, aside from 2 returning directors who were male, all of our directors this season were female, and that was a huge priority. Our writers room is predominantly female. 2 out of the 3 main characters are women, so having that kind of scope in the writer's room has been great. And I think it's, I honestly think empowering women and putting us all in positions, I'm being redundant, but of power, we probably tend to hire a lot of women. I mean, men are wonderful. But we've been working for men for a long time. I mean, I think about it and just hearing these stories, like I think of coming up and, shooting my first pilot and, for like the CW and having this action director direct it who seemed like such a weird fit for like a high school sliding doors pilot, but okay. I guess he's who's available at CBSP, and okay, I'm sure it'll be great. And oh great, there's another male producer who's gonna supervise you, wonderful. Oh, and then there's another male producer who's on it too. Oh great, so we're all gonna go up to Vancouver together and shoot it. Oh, why do I not seem happy? Oh, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm in charge of picking out what purses the girls wear, and I like created the show. And I'm like, how's this thing gonna happen? Oh, don't worry, don't worry about it. You don't need to know. And there's just this like little girl attitude. Cut to, it happened in, of course, the most misogynistic way you could ever imagine, with like girls being like blown up into bits of glass with dodgeball. And I'm like, what is even happening? But okay, so the point here though is that I think from doing that, I went into this pilot with this, I went in with this grateful attitude of like, I'm 29 and I'm so excited that my little pilot is shooting and someone's taking a chance on me, and thanks men, white old men, and then my next pilot I also did with a white man, but he was much more inclusive, and I did it with a female producing partner who was my age, and the 2 of us had a wonderful collaboration, and eventually, as he moved off to continue doing things, she and I ran the show on a daily basis, and it was being with another woman who was my age, who had a similar level of experience. We hired a lot of female writers. It was all people, we were all kind of doing something a little above what we had ever done before, so we were all excited about it. And I definitely went into the next pilot saying, I'm not gonna just sit here and be grateful and be so happy they're making my show. I'm like, no, I wanna participate, I wanna have opinions, I'm gonna do it, I'm not gonna apologize for it. And running a show is like, I always say it's wonderful training to, it's like everything you do all day is hard because you have to have a million hard, awkward conversations that are completely against your nature of wanting to have. It's like, oh, I would love to call that actress and say this inappropriate thing that someone's telling me. Oh, really? Oh, I'd love to tell her to wear different clothes to the test because she looks like a cowboy or whatever it is, and you're like, oh. So you have to be the communicator of kind of awful things. You have to think about how to do it in a not awful way. You have to have hard conversations, and you get strong, and you stop being afraid of them, and you start learning that it's better to have an honest conversation than to avoid something. And to the point where I've had conversations in the last year that with men I respect that I would never think I would be able, of course it was on the phone and I was like completely red and splotchy and about to have a heart attack, but I'm like, but he doesn't know that, and I'm like, I will tell you how I feel very clearly, and I'm not gonna, and I'm like, and then I'm like, it's like you gain strength, and I think, so is it easier to have that fight every day with old white men? No, it's easier to hire women and be like, let's do this.
I think certainly hiring is, you're going to give. Jen touched on this. You need the experience. You need experience. You need to see it first to know how to continue to do it. So the experience does matter for us to figure it out very quickly, to do it well, so that not only you stay hired, but there's another chance, another opportunity. However, I think there's another conversation we can have about how to help women, and I think it's identifying very early on to young girls. Empowering them, and that word is used a lot, but creatively helping them connect. For instance, I'll give an example. And I was raised by 3 beautiful women, and I just lost one recently. And when you reflect on that, you realize how much I was raised to be as confident and taking on the fights and all that. But I remember one of the things that was given to me, and I just sort of share it with you. I used to talk to myself all the time, talking about mental illness. My brother would say, oh, she's talking to herself again, she's crazy. Those are the labels that we tell, she's crazy, she's talking to herself, that's nuts. But because I was raised by women who are strong-minded, someone said, Mara's just writing. She's just writing. I'm making it up. I'm imagining. That's what I do every day for a living, and I love it. I love making it up. But of course, I'm drawing from real life. I'm using all the things that are before me to make this pie or script, however, what metaphor you want to use. I think I'm hungry. But the point is, I think if we tell girls and we pause and we watch them, help them connect to something. You see something in them. Help them, guide them to something, or expose them to something. My aunt took me to see The Wiz. I saw Stephanie Mills in The Wiz at the Schubert Theater. I'll never forget it. I remember Sarah Jessica Parker was in the audience when I saw the original cast of Dreamgirls. My point is, I'm only having these memories because I reflected recently, but they were in me. They were in me, and I carried all of this along to this moment. And I think if we want our girls and our boys to get to a place that would be of the best person for the job, you know what I'm saying? The person who's going to be additive to the story, that we help bring them along, not wait for the employment age, but that we bring them along from the beginning. And I think that's really important and empowering for girls. That it's funny, if they want to dress up, guess what they could do in this industry? You can be Ruth Carter, Oscar nominated, or you can be some woman's name I can't think of right now who wins the Oscar or who wins the Emmy. You know what I'm saying? You can be all of these things, and that's wonderful. And it's funny, a lot of costume designers are turned producers because they're that integral to the storytelling of what we do. I'm just using, I think we have to break free of what we think someone else can do, and we can take that ownership now for children, and it will go. Be a little bit more creative. The one thing, I know I'm switching gears on you, I just wanted to say, I don't know how much time we have left, but I just really wanted to say,
Thank you.
in the spirit of complex women, and it's funny, I examine this in my art as it reflects being African American, telling stories about black people. And one of the things that even black people put on is like, we want a positive image because positivity is going to rewrite all the negativity. But if you do that, that's justifying the negativity. And so, and actually, I don't believe in positive images, and I believe, or negative images. And meaning, I think it puts you in a box and chasing behind, and you're always behind as a storyteller and an observer of human condition and development. If I'm trying to rewrite someone who got it wrong in the first place. And so, positive images can be just as damaging, especially to women, to put us in boxes, to be nice, to be likable, to be this, to be that, to not have sex, to, that's more pious than to just be responsible about your sex, you know what I'm saying? Or, all of these different things, I think that really between positive and negative is human, you know what I'm saying? And just let me be human, I think even as a storyteller is important to what we're adding to the complexity of all images, more specifically women.
I always feel that way whenever someone describes something as feminist. Just the fact that we have to describe it that way means that the world is already unequal. And so I remember someone was like, someone said Mad Max was feminist, and I was like, no, it's not. She needs him to be okay, and that's immediately not. But it's the concept that we keep having to justify it means that we don't have proper representation. So if we keep having these positive role models and negative role models, it just be normal. If everything's normal, then we don't have to be like, oh, it's a feminist film. It's like, oh, it's a film. I don't see why we have to always say that because of inequality, I guess.
Well, because of years and years and years of women who did not have the consciousness, the freedom, or the permission, or even the understanding of what it was to just be a human. Or women's behavior in the 1950s, oh, well, you weren't there. You weren't there for sure.
I watch a lot of TV Land, though.
Yeah, okay. So, when you watch TV Land, it looks fun. Right?
Not Mrs. Cleaver.
No, not Mrs. Cleaver. That's right. But there was an entrapment. There was a trapped situation that I think, the feminist urge came out of a necessary.
Feminine mystique comes out of the 50s.
Yeah, sure did. That was cool. Thank God, right? I mean, Gloria Steinem, da-da-da-da. I'm just saying, I hear you. I wish that we didn't have to label that anymore.
It's fascinating how at this point we still have, ooh, look at Wonder Woman. Look how feminist it is, as opposed to it's a superhero movie.
I know, and she's got shorts on.
She's a female.
Yeah.
But it is a marker of the fight. I think there's this back and forth that the Wonder Woman was just a marker in the fight. To your point, it could be both a good film, and then it also just a marker in the fight of where we are. And like you were asking about, what do the fights look like? What are the specifics? Well, that's a global one that we all know what happened.
Yeah. I don't know how this is going to be met. I like labeling things as feminist. Yeah. I enjoy it. I feel pride in it. My show is a feminist show. And I think that there are shows that are on TV right now that I feel are feminist and that I identify, and I'm like, this is a feminist show. And the people working on it would not label it that way and chose to go out of their way to say human being. And it's not woman, it's human being. And I know, and yes, like they're to a point, like, yes, 100%. But also, like, own the fucking word. Like, I'm a feminist, and I'm really proud of it. And feminist means I believe that men and women are equal, not women are better. It's not a man-bashing thing. It has nothing to do with, it is just about equality. And so to label something as feminist is something I'm very proud to do and something I will do for the rest of my career. And, you know, I do think that there's a kind of a paradox between, like, we shouldn't have to label it because
That's where we are. We have to because of where we are.
yeah, but I also want to, and I want to keep wanting to.
But I think I love I'm a feminist too.
Yeah.
What I always was speaking to, even in that space, as a storyteller, as an artist, if you start from the point of being any label, you're missing, I think,
Yes.
perhaps the complexity of being human or expressing the human condition if you're going in with the agenda to be positive because so many images for Black people were negative, or if you're trying to be a feminist, you know what I'm saying? And so I just talk in the separation from the art versus the fight.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely, totally. We're gonna go to audience questions because we are running out of time. So how many? Okay, wait for the mic to come to you, and we'll start in this lady in blue out here.
Hi. I just want to jump on what Mara was saying about empowering women, and specifically to those of you who run your own shows. I had a really distressing conversation recently with two female friends in the corporate world about how they prefer to work for male bosses because their experiences with women bosses have been that they're working so hard to prove themselves or to pick a fight or whatever it is, that it comes down in this negative way and that they find it's just easier to work for men. I was like extremely distressed by the conversation. But I wanted to know what it's like for you as people in charge to have women under you and sort of how that experience affects how you run your shows and sort of the messages that you want to be sending to the women under you and just sort of what that's like to be sort of the boss.
You know, I feel really strongly that we need to keep hiring women, and even if they have less, sometimes, I mean, if I'm between two people and one has less experience, but she's a woman, I will pick the woman. I mean, Jill Soloway says, like, all men should just stop directing, and I have to say, I have a little feeling about that, you know. And so as a producer, I absolutely will err on hiring women, even if they have less experience. My experience being a female boss is that I'm an awesome female boss because I am inherently a nurturer and inherently someone who wants to take care of their ducklings, you know, and somebody also who wants to bring people together, not pit people against each other. And I know for a fact that people work so hard for me because I acknowledge them, I greet them in the morning, I learn their name, they feel seen and heard and known and appreciated by me. And believe me, I have seen it. I mean, you get that work back, and it is so excellent. And so I don't know, my experience with women in leadership positions has been nothing but wonderful.
And also it builds a community, really. If you work for someone who's a great boss, you're learning from her and you're building upon, I mean, to go back to the first question, I mean, you're building upon the people that have come before you if you are a boss like that and work for someone like that.
And and I also think as women, we have a natural inclination, like Kyra's saying, to create a family. You know, I look at, like, you know, my writers on Life Unexpected, like, we all just vacation together for Memorial Day with all our children. Like, it's like we're not just coworkers anymore. This is like a family that we've built that goes so beyond work, and we'll all work together a million times. And I think even just nothing is worse than getting a job for, like, a male boss who doesn't want to go home at night. You know, when it's like, no family, doesn't like his wife, doesn't really want to put his kids to bed, like at 6 p.m. it's like half day, and you're like, oh my God. No, women, especially mothers, get in, they get the job done, and they want to get home and see their kids. It's like, we are efficient. We're making it happen. We want you to go see your kid. We want you to go see your kid. Like, we don't want to sit around and take 45 minutes to figure out where we're going to lunch. Like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Like, we want to do it, and we want to move on. And so I think, I don't know. I think it's pretty spectacular. And in the world of hiring and kind of supporting people coming up, you know, hopefully we'll all be raising feminist boys, and we'll all be working that way. You know, the next people coming up, everyone's going to want to get home to see their families, and everyone's going to want to work hard, and everyone's going to be communicative and nurturing and compassionate. So.
You know, can I just address what you said though about your friends? Even though I'm not a producer, but I've worked with so many incredible female producers and writers and actresses and everything. I understand that there is an experience out there that your friends have had that I think in the past 20 years, especially as more and more women, thank God, are finally stepping into leadership, that there are sometimes the personality of a woman who has had to, without even quite understanding it, fight her way to a position, and she, instead of being able to change the dynamics, which is what these gals are talking about within the power structure, she becomes reactionary to the dynamic and then becomes a kind of a woman who would seem to be turning on her own. And I suspect that may be what you're talking about. And I think that is beginning to change,
yes, and
right?
I would want to add to that the understanding of that woman. In some cases, I have seen women be harder on women because they know what it takes to stay there.
Yeah.
And but they don't say it nicely in that moment. So when you were asking, I believe everything they were saying, I echo, and I think if I would add to that is, even there's a woman who works with us who I adore. And there's moments, but being a woman, I have to sometimes think, you know, because you can get in a mindset of business, business, business. Everybody get it done, get it done. And then you're like, wait a minute, she's off today. A woman might need another touch than how I manage men. And I think because I'm a woman, I can take a pause and I like, you know what? I don't think I've acknowledged her enough. Yeah. And sometimes just a text of, I really think you're doing great, thank you, is needed, I think, because there is such a famine for women. And also, guys and ladies, let's also accept, we like that. We need that. I don't know. It's funny, I try to give it to my boys. They don't seem to like it as much as my nieces. but I think if I took it away, they would come ask for it. Yeah. But women, we do like it. I think it's okay to understand that difference and that need. And so I think there's sometimes I have to remember, oh, wait a minute. Have I managed to the place that people need it as well? And those gender differences can come into play.
We could also talk about like Hillary Clinton all day long, but obviously,
can we?
But yes, in the lobby.
Let's just stay here. Okay, let's just lock the door and stay here all day.
It'd be amazing. We'll drink. We'll get some wine, frosé.
Call her.
But literally, like this idea, I think to your friend's point too, women have been expected to lead like men. And I think that it's being embraced, and women are starting to realize we can lead like women, and that is so effective and powerful, for everyone.
Lead like a woman. We're going to end it there. But thank you so much to these amazing women. And thank you for coming.